to start this episode with a question, and I want you to actually sit with it. Don't just let it pass by. When is the last time your day felt full and peaceful at the same time? I'll wait. Not just productive, not just checked off, but like everything you did that day was exactly what was supposed to be there. No guilt, no dread, no sense that you were somehow falling behind on something else. For a lot of women I talk and work with, that feeling is so rare. And what makes it even more confusing is that it's rare even when they're doing everything right, even when they're faithful, even when they're serving, even when their calendars look full of good, responsible, God-honoring things. They're doing the things, and yet something still feels off. I want to talk about that today because I think we've been misdiagnosing it. Welcome back to another episode of the Steward Well Life podcast, where we talk about what it means to steward your faith, your time, and your purpose God's way. I'm Telanna, founder of the Purpose Minded Woman and the Steward Well Life community. And listen, I am so glad that you landed here today. So here's what usually happens. A woman comes to me or reaches out online and she says something like this: I know I'm supposed to feel purpose, but I just feel tired. Or I'm doing everything I can think of and I still feel like I'm behind. Or sometimes it's just, I'm faithful, I show up. Why does it still feel so hard? And the instinct from culture, from productivity content, even sometimes from well-meaning church voices, is to say, you need more discipline. You need better habits, a new planner, an earlier wake-up time, a 75-day challenge, because we've all tried to do that, right? But here's what I've come to believe after years of working with purpose-driven, high-capacity Christian women. The problem isn't usually the effort that you're given, it's the alignment. And those two things require completely different solutions. So there's a woman in scripture I think about a lot when I'm having these conversations, and her name is Martha. We all know who Martha is. In Luke 10, Jesus comes to her home and Martha is doing everything right. Remember, Martha is doing everything right. She's serving, she's hosting, she's being responsible, she's making sure everything is taken care of. And from the outside, honestly, from most church cultures, Martha would be celebrated. She's doing the work. She's showing up. She's stewarding what she thinks the capacity that God has given to her. But Jesus says to her, Martha, Martha, girlfriend, you are anxious and troubled about many things. But the one thing that is actually necessary for you to be anxious and troubled about. Now, I want you to notice what Jesus did not say. He didn't say Martha was lazy. He didn't say she was sinning. He didn't even say she needed to be more disciplined. He didn't shame her for her effort. He identified her distraction, her anxiety, her scattered focus across many things when one thing was what mattered. And my dear friend, that is misalignment, not moral failure, not lack of discipline, but mismanagement. And that is what I see in so many faithful, high-capacity Christian women. I see it because I saw it in myself first. The effort is real. The heart is good. The schedule is full, but the focus is scattered. And scattered focus, even when it's focused on good things, always produce that low-grade exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. So let me give you the distinction that I come back to over and over again. Busy women measure tasks. Aligned women measure direction. Busy says, did I get it done? Can I check it off? Where aligned says, did what I do today move me in the direction that God actually assigned to me for this season? Because one builds speed, the other builds weight, and they absolutely do not lead to the same place. Because how many times have you checked off everything on your to-do list and still at the end of the day, you feel unsettled? like you did nothing. And it's not because you didn't work hard, but because the work you did came from obligation instead of assignment, from habit instead of intention, from someone else's expectation instead of a clear yes from God. How many of y'all want clear yeses from God? Listen, I know I do. And I even want to go a little further here and say something that might feel just a little uncomfortable for you, because I think it's important. Some of what's on your plate right now, God didn't put it there. I felt that for myself too. So I absolutely know that you felt that. You picked it up, or someone handed it to you, and you didn't have the language or the courage to put it back down. Or it was from a previous season that God already closed and the door shut, but you were willing to stand in the room. And when you carry what you weren't assigned to carry, even faithfully, even with a good heart, it always produces that restlessness, that sense that something is off, even when everything looks fine. That is a stewardship problem. It is not a discipline problem. It is a stewardship problem. So what do you do with that when God brings you into a spiritual awakening to show you that you have a stewardship problem? I want to give you 3 questions, and I want you to actually write these down in your journal or come back to them during your next quiet time, because these are not rhetorical, right? These are diagnostic, because the Bible said that we are to not only be hearers of the word, we are to be doers of the word. Too often we read and we don't apply. And so this is why it's important that you actually look at these questions and you weigh them in your life. So question number 1, let's get to it. What on my plate belongs to obedience and what belongs to obligation? Obedience is responding to what God has clearly asked you to in this season, whereas obligation is responding to pressure, expectation, or history. Most of us, if we're honest, have a plate full that's a mixture of both. And the problem is we treat obligation with the same weight as obedience. We show up for both. We feel guilty about both. But honey, they are not equal. Question number 2, where am I saying yes to avoid disappointing someone instead of honoring God? Listen, we have all been there. We have all been people pleasers. We have all told people yeses because we didn't know how to say no. No in a way that wouldn't offend the other person, or no in a way that would make us not look like the person that didn't care about that other person. Guilt-based yeses feel like faithfulness. They feel responsible. They feel like the Christian thing to do. But 1 Corinthians 4:2 says it's required in students that one be found faithful. Faithful to what God has entrusted to you, not faithful to everyone's comfort. I'm going to say that again. Faithful to what God has entrusted to you, not everyone's comfort, because we are not here to please everyone. I think it's Galatians 1:10 that talks about not trying to seek the approval of man, but rather the approval of God. So when you let someone's potential disappointment govern your yes, you are letting their comfort override your obedience. And that matters. It should matter to you because it matters to God. And question 3, if I had to protect one thing on my calendar this week, just for my peace, what would it be? And then I want you to slow down just a little bit more and be honest with yourself. Why isn't it already protected? Now, I know that something came to mind for you, right? Probably the most aligned thing in your schedule. And the fact that it needs protection means everything else has been taking priority over it. Your peace is not a bonus. It is a signal. When your peace is constantly gone, your alignment is off. So here's what I want you to leave this episode knowing. You are not behind. You're not broken. You're not even undisciplined. You're likely carrying assignments that don't match your current season. And the invitation isn't to do more. It's to steward more carefully. And stewardship isn't about money. It's not about a productivity system. Biblical stewardship is about managing your whole life, your identity, your time, your gifts, your calling. As someone who's been entrusted with something so precious and is accountable to the one who gave it. When you shift from living like an owner to living like a steward, the weight changes, the questions change, and your decisions get clearer. If you want to do that work in community, with structure, with frameworks, and women who are walking through the same thing, the Steward Well Life is where we get to practice this together. It's where I've included the 5 seasons of stewardship so that you can see what season you're in. And it's where I've also included the steward's blueprint so that you can understand how to bring your gifts, your calling, and your time all together. So I'm going to leave the link in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a woman in your life who's been saying, I'm just tired. Like that's supposed to be her normal, because it doesn't have to be. Until next time, walk boldly in purpose, shine bright, and steward well the life that God has entrusted to you.